Hello, welcome to the video. What we're looking at today is something called compound percentages. So, hopefully by this point we're comfortable with working out percentages, but we want to be able to see what happens if something is increasing or decreasing by a percentage over and over again, and it keeps stacking on top of each other. So we could work that out, just it's increased by 5%, get the new value, then work out 5% of that, get the new value, etc. But we want to come up with a quicker way of doing it. So let's just look at an example type thing first and say we'll make sure we're comfortable with the longer way of doing it so we know just how we're actually using percentages. So say I've got £150 increasing by 2% for 3 years. Now, obviously, you'd get a bit more sort of a wordy question written out properly, but this gives us the basic information we need. So, after 1 year, we'll do 150 and we'll times that by 1.02 to see what it is with an increase of 2%. Now, this idea here of linking an increase of 2% and multiplying by 1.02, that's something you should be familiar with, but I will also put up a link to a video that goes over that process too, just in case that's something you've forgotten. So we do 150 times 1.02, and you'll be glad to know this sort of thing would be in your calculator paper. So and that's going to give us £153. So then after 2 years, now it's £153 that's increasing by 2%. So it's 153 times 1.02. Again, so 153 times 1.02 is going to give us £156.06, and then 3 years. Now it's £156 and 2 pence. That's increasing by 2%, so times 1.02. 156.06 times 1.02 is going to give us £159.18. And so that's what my £150 has increased to after 3 years. Now, what if I'd asked you what it had increased to after 7 years or 17 years? That would be a pain and super annoying to have to do that each time. And so there's a special method we can use that makes this much, much easier and much, much quicker. And so to do that, what you do is you take your original amount, your your £150, then you times that by your increase, so your 1.02 here is linked to your 2%, but you do a power here, so you do it times 1.02 to the power of 3, where the power you do it to is how many times this increase is happening. So if we pop that on our calculators now, if we just do 150 times 1.02 to the power of 3, and we get the same number as we got here at the end. We get 159.18, and that was so much quicker and easier. And we can do that whether it's increasing or decreasing. So I'm just going to pause for a second and write down a couple of examples so you can see exactly what I mean. So here we go. We've got more questions written out how you'd expect to see them. So I put £4,500 in a savings account with annual interest of 3.5%. How much do I have after 11 years? So first, we need to identify the amount of money or the amount of anything we're starting with originally. So here, the amount we're starting with is 4,500. That's our original amount. Next, we have to identify what decimal we'll times that by that matches the percentage. And so we get that from how much the percentage is increasing here. So it's going up by 3.5%. So that means I times it by 1.035. Basically, to change your percentage to a decimal, you divide it by 100. So 3.5% as a decimal would be 0.35. But since we're getting more, we do that as 1.035. Now, that's that bit done. And so finally, we have to say how long we're doing this increase for. So this is annual interest. That means it's getting added on every year. And we're doing this for 11 years. So I put 11 as my power up there. And that's all we need to do, is identify each of those three things and then pop that on our calculator. So let's do 4,500 multiplied by 1.035 to the power of 11. And that means then we'll have 6,569 pounds and 86 pence. Be very careful with something like this that you do rounding that makes sense. So here, I've rounded this to 2 decimal places because it's money, okay? Right, and that's our answer for that question. Now let's look at the next question, which isn't money and isn't increasing. So, just before anyone gets really worried about the state of robins in Scotland, I've completely made up these numbers. Don't worry, they're not nearly going extinct. So, currently there are 12,100,000 robins in Scotland. This number is falling by 14% each year. How many will there be by 2030? So first thing is to identify our original starting number. So here, that's 12,100,000. Then next, we need to identify what our decimal multiplier is. So here, the number is falling by 14%. So that means the decimal I times that by is 0.86. And the way I get that is if it's falling by 14%, that means there's 86% left. And so to get that as a decimal, I just divide that by 100, which gives me 0.86. Okay, and that's where I get my decimal multiplier from. If, for example, it was increasing by 14% instead of decreasing, that would mean that each time I had 114%. And so if I divided that by 100, I'd get 1.14, and that would be my decimal multiplier. So that's how we calculate that. But like I said, I will put up a video to that separately. Now, the last thing to identify is how long this is happening for. How many times is this happening? So currently it's 2021 and we're doing it by 2030. So that means this is going on for 9 years. So I put 9 as my power. And again, we just pop this into the calculator. So I've got 12,100,000. Yep. And then I'm going to times that by 0.86 to the power of 9. And there, that's telling us that by the end of those 9 years, there'll only be 3,113,000. And then let's be careful with our rounding. Here, we can't have 0.7 of a robin, so let's just round this up to the nearest whole number. So we'll have 3,113,662. And that's how many would be left. And that's our final answer. So that's how we do compound percentages. It's just a really quick way of doing percentages that stack up on top of each other. Now, most of the time you'll see this is to do with money and savings, but it can be used in other situations like we see here. So hopefully that was all understandable. If not, you know how to get in touch, and thanks for watching.